Guess we can go green since it's 4 o'clock.
Okay. I'm green.
All right. Being that it's 4, I'd like to call this meeting to order. May 15th, Board of Public Works. And start with the invocation. Lord, watch over us in these proceedings. Grant us wisdom in our efforts. We pray you keep our members safe in their endeavors and obedient to you in our actions. I thank you for the blessings you've bestowed on us. In your name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda from the previous month?
Yeah, I'll make motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Do we have any comments from the audience?
We do.
All right. John Ling.
Did that work? Yes, it did.
Good.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
I have a question for you, John, and the other board members. Earlier, I asked Mr. Gordon if he could provide me a comparison of how much we pay for Prairie State power versus how much we pay for power that we buy on the open market. And he was nice enough to say he'd have Mr. Trenhale provide me an answer to that question. And indeed, I got an email that included a spreadsheet of sorts that had about a dozen or more columns to it and acronyms or abbreviations or something at the top of each column. And I confess I couldn't make heads or tails of it. It was not a comparison of the wholesale price of Prairie State power versus market power. And that's what I'm looking for on a kilowatt hour basis. I know at the Board of Public Works we talk about megawatts. And as I understand it, a megawatt is 1,000,000 watts of power burned over the course of an hour. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And a kilowatt's 1,000. So a megawatt's 1,000 kilowatts. I pay for electric power by the kilowatt hour, and I pay a little over a dime a kilowatt hour, including, of course, your meter tax. If it didn't have the meter tax, it'd be slightly less. So what I want to ask you, John, and the other members of the board is, can you see if you can extract the information that I'm looking for? And that is, let's say over a year, could be over 6 months, could be over 2 years, whatever is convenient. What the cost of power is on a wholesale basis, comparing the Prairie State power we buy per kilowatt hour versus the power that we buy on the open market per kilowatt hour. So I would know whether or not we need to buy more Prairie State or we need to buy more, if we could, buy more on the open market. You reckon you all could do that?
I can.
Excellent.
The complexities that have been thrown on electric providers such as us are steeped in a number of regulations. And the somewhat short answer to that is, in order to get 1 kilowatt of power to your panel box, it takes a number of different things. First of all, we have to pay to get the megawatts from where it's produced to here. Then it has to come from here and distributed out, step down to 240 volts. And then we have infrastructure, which are wires that go from that step down location to your house. So that's kind of like the highway that you're paying a trucker to bring something to your house to deliver it. So we have to pay for that highway first before one drop of power comes through. So built into all that network is the setup the meter, you call it a tax. It's really kind of an infrastructure cost that's loaded with all the stuff it took to plant the poles and buy the wire and buy the transformer before it can actually go to your house. So after all that stuff is taken care of, now you're ready to buy power. And the number of kilowatt hours that you buy are also complicated by a couple of things through the regulatory and the distribution system. And two things that are loaded into the costs that you pay for the first drop of power are the fee that we have to pay to make sure that we have this stuff called demand, so that whenever you turn something on, it's going to be there. So before you even pay for one drop of power, we have to pay for demand. And then after all that stuff is ready to go, then you start paying for kilowatt hours. That's why it's a very difficult and complicated thing. That's why you have 12 lines of things to let you know what the costs are. So when you're asking what the wholesale price of 1 kilowatt hour is, it looks like it's a lot cheaper than what you're paying for, because those front-loaded infrastructure costs aren't included in it. So we pay, and I could look through your chart to find out how much we pay for a kilowatt of actual power that goes to your house, and it would have to be embedded in or extrapolated from all the infrastructure that was set up to get it to your house, and then we start the meter. So I guess to refine the question, you'd need to ask, what is the first drop of power cost me after all the infrastructure is paid for in the metering fees? And then after I start using more and more, that infrastructure cost doesn't change. Then you just have kilowatt hours added to your meter. So your bill consists of the kilowatt hours that you've used, and then the fee for the infrastructure that got it to your house. So it sounds like a simple question that you're asking, how much do we pay for kilowatt hour? And that list of 12 columns will tell you, but it's not going to give you the answer that you're looking for.
If I may, you bill me on the basis of kilowatt hours used.
After all the infrastructure is set up.
Kilowatt hours used.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there may be a lot of mumbo jumbo that goes into that.
Well, it's not mumbo jumbo.
Well,
it's
it
hard.
is to me.
Okay.
Now, if you understand it, you can make me understand it.
Okay.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But my question isn't that complicated. My question is a comparison of wholesale cost. And the wholesale, you write checks, don't you? So you write a check to Prairie State, and if you buy from Washington State Power and Light or whatever,
Yeah.
you write a check to them. So to me, I need a little more illumination on why that's complicated. If you're buying power, you're buying it, let's say you're buying it per megawatt. So if you're buying it for $43 a megawatt, that's 4.3 cents a kilowatt. So you ought to be able to tell me how much you pay over here and how much you pay over here, so I could make a comparison. And then if we want to get into a discussion about infrastructure, that Walmart takes into account infrastructure. Walmart has transportation costs. Every business does. Mm-hmm. I've been in business. I know how that goes. And it all goes into the price. But my question I'm asking is the wholesale comparison between those two sources. That's uncomplicated, isn't it?
Well, are you talking about the demand or just
I'm talking about the cost per kilowatt hour based on however quantity you buy. Isn't that easy?
It is.
Excellent. Well, what I'd like for you to do, I'll come back next meeting if necessary, but if you can find that out for me, you don't have to wait that long. You can just let me know.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking for the spreadsheet. I'm not a cynical person, but a cynical person would say that all that information I got from Mr. Trenhale was all there so that I would say, well, I can't comprehend this, and I wouldn't ask any more questions.
We have a whole staff of people ready to make it as complicated as possible.
Well, that's my concern. That is my concern. But, but having been a businessman, and I still supervise some enterprises and all that, I'm just interested to know what your wholesale comparison is, Prairie State versus, now, are we having Ammer and UE buy our power on the market? I thought I saw something about that.
No.
Who does that?
Who does what?
Who shops for power?
These guys do.
You do?
We've got a consultant that helps us take in both purchase and if there's extra, they market it.
Yeah. What's that person's name?
It's GDS Consulting.
It's a consulting firm.
It's a consulting firm.
And where are they?
They're all over the place. We have a.
No. If I wanted, let's say I wanted to serve them with summons, where would I go?
Are they in St. Louis? Or are they? Marietta,
Marietta, Georgia. All right. Well, so we've got that, and if you needed help in getting the answer to wholesale, they would help you, wouldn't they? Okay. All right. So is it fair that you could give me an answer to my question about wholesale price to wholesale price, market versus Prairie State?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for
How
your.
often does that price change?
Hourly.
Okay.
But you do keep track.
You better believe that's
I was
what we
gonna-
gave you.
I was gonna
We gave
say-
you every bit of information we have.
In
We
a
want to be
form-
as transparent as possible.
In a form that I would be glad to sit down with you in public and have you explain to me, because that's tall order. All right. So if you can do that, it would save me from coming back and bothering you, taking up your time at your next meeting. Fair enough?
It's fair enough, but I guarantee you, it took me months and months, and I'm nowhere near an expert, to see what these cost structures are all about. And there are so many ingredients to it that getting down to, I was trying to get down to exactly what you're trying to do, and it takes a lot of looking at what's going on. Another complication is that we're a partner with Prairie State, so that after we end up buying it from Prairie State, we end up getting a credit because we're a committed, not exactly an owner, but in a quasi-ownership situation with them, because now every month we get a credit on the power we buy. Now that credit varies. So now, in order to tell you exactly how much the Prairie State first drop of power is, it's going to have to say, okay, this month, this week, this day, the credit that you got, because you're a part quasi-owner, is reduced by the credit that they're going to give you. So be prepared for it to include the pieces that need to be included to make sense.
Well, let me make sure I'm clear on this. Your Prairie State cost varies from moment to moment. Is that what you're telling me?
The net ending cost after the credits due.
Is that daily, monthly, weekly, hourly?
I don't know.
Do you know, Mr. Gordon?
It is hourly as well.
Hourly, yeah.
Okay, and do they spit out all those credits to you when they send you a bill?
Yes, sir.
What's your bill look like?
It's about 14, 15 pages and has that information.
Well, what I'm
I'd be
looking,
glad to give it to you.
what I'm looking for, well, you don't have to, because, as a matter of fact, I might want to look at it sometime. But the thing of it is that there's got to be some way that you all make a comparison as to whether or not we're getting a better deal from Prairie State, from the market out there, however you want to define the market. It's, people that have power for sale. people that were in the same situation we were when we lost $30 million on Prairie State, buying their power at their cost and selling it on the market. 30 million. That's right, isn't it? A little bit better than 30 million over the.
What was that situation you're talking about?
Well, we went into a deal with Prairie State back around 2008. I could be wrong on that. We went into a deal with Prairie State.
I've read the agreement.
And we have to buy power from them. All right. Well, as soon as we did that, Union Electric dropped our costs by 2/3. And so we were paying Prairie State while we were still getting power from UE. The citizens of Hannibal, if we didn't get into Prairie State, and if somehow by God's will or whatever you want to call it, Union Electric lowered our prices in order to keep us.
But they didn't do that until.
I understand. If that had happened, we would have saved the ratepayers in Hannibal about $30 million over the period of time from 2008 to we
You're
finally.
Speculating, John. Now,
I'm not
you're going down
speculating.
a
I
rabbit
have the
hole.
numbers provided by me from the general manager of the Board of Public Works,
You're
month
just-
by month.
You're just speculating.
I'm
on
not speculating.
what if.
I can show you.
All right, let's do that after the meeting.
Well, but the
Let's
thing
do
of it
that
is,
after the meeting.
if you say that I don't have the right information, I will show you what the Board of Public Works provided to me to show that even though we're not an owner of Prairie State, we don't elect anybody to the board. We don't have any interest in Prairie State that we can sell. It cost us $30 million over the course of that time when we were buying Prairie State up here and selling Prairie State down here. That was the difference in what the cost to us was and what we got for it when we found somebody else to buy it.
I'm not privy to what you're
Well,
talking about.
all right, maybe I need to dig into the file and get that stuff out so you have it. But what I'm looking for is what the Prairie State wholesale cost is. As you go through all the permutations, whatever you need to do to get that, to come up with a number, and that's a number that you all have to pay versus the wholesale cost that you buy elsewhere with whatever goes into that, and have a comparison. Here's how much is over here. Here's how much is over there. And you all know that, don't you? I mean, you're in charge.
Any given minute of the day, that can be calculated.
Excellent. And what I'm looking for is what it is over a period of time.
Well,
6 months would make me happy. A year would be better. Well, and that's information you have, isn't it?
Well, one of the interesting characteristics about the way that we buy power is that our costs can fluctuate.
Every day,
100%.
we every hour. We understand that.
So giving you the instantaneous amounts of cost for each day for a 6-month period, you'd just be looking for the average or just a particular time of day because it fluctuates so
I understand.
much.
But it fluctuates like Nolan Arenado's batting average. But over the course of the season, you know what he hit, and that's all I'm looking for.
After the games are over.
That's right. And 6 months ago, let's go back to April. Going back 6 months, that season's over. So you'd have the numbers, wouldn't you? Yeah. That's all I'm asking for. And thank you
We
for
have a general response to that in the general manager's report under power supply.
Okay.
Well, if you've got that.
It's on the general
Pardon?
manager's report.
Well, is your manager report any more clear than Mr. Trenhale's spreadsheet that he sent me?
Let me read it to you.
Okay.
For the most recent trailing 12 months, our total power supply costs, including Prairie State revenues and expenses, MISO market purchases, the AEP energy hedges, transmission and capacity have totaled $72.70 per megawatt hour, compared to $50.24 per megawatt hour for the same time period a year ago. For the most recent trailing 12 months, the Prairie State capacity factor and all-in costs per megawatt are 87% and 63.28 respectively, compared to 94% and $56.47 for the same time period a year ago. Here are the updated L&P table for the trailing 12 months, along with the graph for the trailing 24 months for a visual. And it will show you that it goes from L&P costs, 86, 94, 87, 94, 78, 50, 48, 66, 34, 30, 26, 23, for an average of $60.11. And if you want to take a look, here's the graphical form, so you can actually see it. See, you can.
But now,
see how it's
that's
doing.
it looks to me like, from
These
that
are
and from what you
numbers.
said, that's your total.
Okay,
All right.
these are numbers.
Well,
that
I'm
came
looking,
from the graph
I'm asking you
that
for,
we gave you.
I'm asking for a comparison. I'm asking for a comparison between what you get from Prairie State and what you get elsewhere. And you've got the total, so I can imagine you also got the information that could
Do our best. to
split it
make
out.
them understandable to you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your time, and I hate to be imposing on it, but I'm interested.
It's very complex, and it's still going to be frustrating after you get the answer. And it would be nice to have, bing, that's it. But unfortunately, there's so many pieces to it.
Yeah, but when you
But I
get
know what
right,
you're
when you
looking
get right down to it, money's money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, John. All right. Any other comments from the audience? Okay. Having heard none, can we go to the general manager's report, Darren?
All right, I've got just a few things that I'd like to go over. Number one, probably most excitingly, and with Frank, with a little bit of pride in what we've gotten accomplished so far, is we've had our stormwater funding effort begun. We have created our committee, we've moved forward, we've had our first real workshop on May 4th, and our next one's going to be on May 18th. There's really a couple of steps that we're going through. Number one, we need to establish the fact that we need a stormwater funding source. We are responsible for everything below ground, from the storm grate inside into the pipes that flow into the ultimately the river. We know we need it. We also needed to come up with how much is it going to cost? We needed funding, but what is that going to be? We've used a consultant, Black & Veatch. They have helped us go through, set up both a 5-year plan. We've even reached out and looked at a 10-year plan, and we recognize the need for, at least for those years, we need approximately $4 million of revenue in order to fully meet our requirements. Now, we can always take, in my mind, you take stormwater and break it into two buckets. One is water quantity. So we've got to get a big slug of water from here to the river without wiping out roads, without wiping out homes, without doing damage. The other is water quality, and that's going to be foisted upon us more and more by government regulation, and it's called MS4. So putting that together, we have $4 million that we need annually for us to create a stormwater utility and move forward. The third step, and this is really the step, so the first step and second step, I believe we have established at that previous meeting. The next step is to actually come up with the funding mechanism. We've provided them 3. Number 1 is impervious surface. Number 2 is gross acreage. And 3 is just simply per parcel, what that cost would be. In order for that to be as fair and equitable as possible, we really can't go out and measure every raindrop that falls on everybody's property and figure out what that's going to cost across the board. But we can take, and using some scientific, some proven assumptions, using the impervious area seems to be the most fair and equitable for all. So the next committee meeting that we're going to hold, which is on the 18th at 6 o'clock here, we're going to have that discussion. They will have that discussion, and we will follow their direction. At least that's what I will come back to you with, is ultimately what that committee recommends.
Describe impervious area.
Impervious area says that if you have a rooftop, a driveway that will not allow the water to soak into the soil, that water is going to run off, and ultimately it's going to hit our roads and our pipes. And so if you have a very large roof and large driveway, you're going to have more influence on what's going into the road versus someone that has a very small home, small roof, small driveway. And so we're measuring, we will have the ability to measure that on each of the parcels and take and call that, divide it by a 500 square foot minimum measure, and that is the units that we're going to be charging people. And the number that's going to go into that, we don't know yet. And so that's another thing that Black and Veatch is going to help us know is exactly what that number will be so that we can make that $4 million ultimately. So,
That
I don't know.
impervious doesn't affect the businesses.
Businesses will do it as well. One of the other questions that we're going to have a committee take care of is whether or not we have, I turned it off, whether or not we have exempt properties included or not. We have legal advice that says we can do that as a vote for a tax, but it opens us up to a lot of litigation. They would have to be fought over in the courts, and I don't know that really that's the best way to go. And so that is we've provided the facts to that group, and we will again, what their recommendation is what I will come and bring to you. It is my recommendation that we don't, simply because of that battle that it would bring about. I also think it would be less likely that it would pass if exempt were included. Now, I am not a voting member of that committee, so that's not, we will let them give that direction. Once they've come up with those final, they give us what they want to do for that funding source, for that tax, the next step is actually taking to do the outreach. And that is where we, as the Board of Public Works, we cannot do that. There are ethics requirements, and so I can educate, but honestly, my staff cannot. We will probably have to find a different venue for them to meet, because I don't know that we can actually allow them to use our facilities, whether that's a form of us funding that we can or can't do. So there's some questions on that legal side that we're going to get some direction as well. But I'm very excited about it. I think the committee has moved forward very well. I think it was a great discussion. Bill was there, and I don't know if you have anything else you'd want to add to that.
No, I think as the committee does its work, we'll get a little more detail out of that and what the consultant had to say.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you. Second part of my report is the Mississippi River is starting to recede. And I will simply tell you,
It's raining.
one of the things, it's raining, but I would simply say our team has done a very good job, kind of led by Matt Munslinger, if you can imagine that. We went down, we were responsible for the pump that takes any of the water that comes on the backside of the levee. So while the flood, the river was coming up, hit flood level, if we had rain, if we had storm water that came in behind that levee, our pumps are what's going to take and move that back into the river in spite of its the rise. And so we've had that, we had our electricians go checked on it. Matt will probably give a report. But I'll also tell you that we've coordinated very carefully with the EOC. We've got Chief Naki, who's responsible for the emergency response. We're coordinated with him, with Ryan Nyson, the police chief, and all of the county. And we had a very good, solid response, at least in preparation, had it become an emergency of some type. We also checked, we have some of the things that were used in previous flooding to take and bolster and raise the levee. And we've checked on that. We have a few things we'll have to work on, maybe some all thread and other than that, but our team did a great job in preparation. Had it gotten anywhere serious, we were prepared to respond. And I'm very proud of them for doing that. Next up, I'm sad Mr. Ling left. This is just recently, we continue to prepare for the MISO capacity changes and volatility. We were supposed to have had the capacity market completed. MISO has gone from an annual capacity market to a seasonal capacity market. So every quarter, we have to go and find out what those costs are. That's going to change. For this coming year, it's going to be set for 1 year, but that will change. The other thing is that it was put off by an entire month. We're not going to know the final capacity for this coming year until the end of this week, which it should have been a month ago. All of that volatility and uncertainty adds an upward pressure on price and cost. The second thing is, if you go to the EPA, you will find that the EPA announced
just a few days ago that there's a new directive that we're going to be carbon neutral on our generation by 2035. And with that, we're going to have our coal generation. They're going to either have to use scrubbers, which are going to be having hydrogen or other means of scrubbing, which will be very, very, very expensive, which is likely to shutter and close even more of our base load.
As Bob and I found when we went to the site, the mine site, they're doing a terrific job.
Yes.
Hopefully they won't have to upgrade that as much, because right now I don't know what they gave us the number,
Yeah.
what their spillage rate was or whatever, but they appear to be doing a really good job.
Next to
Hopefully
nothing.
that won't affect our
Really?
MISO.
I would encourage you to just Google the EPA carbon reduction, the carbon emissions reduction for 2035. What we're seeing is that this is adding volatility, adding even greater upward pressure. It's going to put another hamper on capacity. This is very serious. And this is one of those things I would encourage anyone that has an interest to, that you write your legislators, et cetera, that this is a pressure that we need to manage a little better, probably as a nation. So that is, sorry, bad news, but that's one of those things there's not much we can do other than contact our legislators and let them know of our concerns.
A question that you may or may not know. The EPA announced that this proposed regulations, is that by law now, or is that just what they themselves are dictating?
I don't know. So that's a legal question that I don't know that anybody really knows the answer to right now.
I think they're the regulatory agency empowered by Congress to do that. In
And
other
how
words,
much power they
Congress
have.
gives them, no pun intended, right? Gives them the authority, just like the Interstate Commerce Commission is empowered by Congress to enact legislation or to enforce legislation. In other words, if it's passed, they do it.
I guess my question goes back to, did Congress recently enact some new legislation? Or is this something the EPA is doing? Have we got a chance to fight back on this if we go to Congress, is my question.
It's pretty new, so I don't know what steps are for the fight against the pushback.
Okay.
So, all right, I'll finish very quickly. I haven't usually done this in my general manager's report, but we have Erica Mitchell, who's our new public relations officer. She's new to us, and you guys wave, say hello. Welcome. We're glad to have her here, and she's already proven to be a quick study, and we're very glad to have her here. Our human resources, Beverly, has been working extra overtime. We've had lots of hires. Please read her report that is here. She's done a great job. We've gotten some good new people on. And then finally, that power supply, as I read through it, I'm sure you guys have all looked at it usually on your own. We see that, again, that upward pressure that's coming from volatility and capacity costs. And you said very well that every single hour, the amount of Prairie State, the amount of LMPs, the amount of those things are so very volatile that you can't really simplify it. Sometimes things just simply are difficult and complex. This is one of those. So
That's why they do spreadsheets.
we will do our best. We'll try and explain what base load is, et cetera, and we'll go from there.
I'm guessing what he's looking to see if Prairie State is cheaper than other energy sources.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it is.
Well, I noticed in the average here, on this average cost, a quick question, does that include credits back? Is that figured in there?
The MISO all-in cost there does, the Prairie State all-in cost does not.
So the Prairie State, would it be considered a lower cost per megawatt hour then,
Yes,
than what is showing there? Okay.
yeah, if we factor those credits in, it
Because last year, I said for the same period a year ago, cost was 56 versus 50. And this year, of course, it's 72 versus 63. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Right. It does. It's,
And your
it is
transmission.
flip-flop, like you said, very much.
Somewhere in one of the spreadsheets, I did see the credits listed as a,
Yeah, someplace
yeah, it's in here
he
somewhere.
does show it. So I just didn't know if that overall average that he showed there was included credits or not. So
That concludes my report.
Thanks very much, Darren. Moving right along to, operations report, Mr. Munslinger, please.
It's not that bad, I promise. Just to highlight, we continue with our good electric reliability. We actually went up to thousandths of a percent. So again, that's a 12-month rolling average. We try to shoot for at least 4 nines, and we've done that for numerous months in a row now. Again, squirrels continue to be our largest causes of outage. RP3 designation, that process to reapply for that is opened. That's something that the Board of Public Works has held since 2008, and something that we'll work toward getting that application in again, due by the end of September. So there may be some things that we need to bring to you all for approval at later meetings. We did get the generator installed at the water treatment plant. It has been tested. It will run 2 pumps at the pump house as well as the water plant. And so that is what the plan was all along. And so, again, that was 18 months ago. We ordered that generator and finally got it in and installed.
Question, would that operate the water plant in demand time, like the summer, for an extended period of time?
Yeah.
If we were without power, like storm out a week or so?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, about 24 hours of fuel storage is what we've got with it. So it would just be a matter of maintaining fuel.
Thank you.
At the wastewater plant, the maintenance crew, they installed a automatic cleaning strainer system on our in-plant water. We had a strainer system, but since we moved to not staffing the plant 24 hours a day, if the strainer plugged overnight, they'd have to call somebody in. So they went away from using the in-plant water, and it was driving up the water cost to the wastewater plant. And so we bought this piece of equipment in the anticipation of saving a lot of cost, just reutilizing that in-plant water system and not having to buy as much potable water. Water plant, we continue. You'll see the numbers there were lower than the previous years, but again, just to remind you that we did find a issue with our high service meter, and so that is reflected in the 2023 numbers and was probably present in the previous year numbers. We just don't know when exactly that occurred. So that's why we're trending lower on the water going out into the system. We did the spring cleaning of our basins. That's where we cleaned everything with the exception of the pump house due to the high river levels. That's where we take each basin out of service, hose all the mud and debris out, and also look for anything that may need repair. Next GAC exchange is scheduled for the end of May, 1st of June. Again, trying to do that on a quarterly basis. The main focus at the end of last month for the water crew was to go out and verify that valve locations and that whether or not valves were accessible. We're just today began a water loss survey, having a company come in. They install listening devices on valves and listen for leaks over nighttime periods when usage is low, and they needed access to those valves and to that be able to install that listening equipment. And so right now, or as the time of this report, they had cleaned out roughly 605 meter boxes or verified their location. We've got roughly 300 valves in town, so we've continued to go ahead. We're far enough ahead that as the company comes in and installs their equipment, they're going to leapfrog it through town, so we'll be able to stay in front of them and provide the access that they need. This is going to be key as we chase the water loss to look for any leaks that are out there or leaks that are not out there, so we can look elsewhere for it. And also provide good baseline for future leak detection. At the wastewater plant, even though we did have our high river for most of the past month, today we're at 3.75 million gallons flow. The peak over the last month has been 4.7 million gallons. And so we've seen that the efforts that we've taken over the past few years on the collection system side pay dividends here. And so I was surprised to see that number so low. And so we're going to continue to move forward with those efforts and preventing I&I from entering the system. One major item that we have at the wastewater plant is we had a gearbox failure on clarifier number 3. Parts alone on that are around $42,000, I believe. We got a contractor in that to complete that installation once we do receive that equipment in-house. Wastewater collection side with the spring, tree roots have become an issue again. We did have 3 SSOs. Once the roots get in the sewer pipe, they just act like a big strainer and they collect any type of debris. Flushable wipes is a big thing that they collect. And so we did have 3 SSOs. And so Alex has refocused their efforts into areas where we previously had issues with tree roots and doing a lot of root cutting in hopes that we can get those areas addressed before they do become a problem. As Darren alluded to, we did turn on the stormwater pumps mid-April. They were rebuilt in 2021, but only had about 4 hours of use. That was just testing over a couple-day period. We haven't had high river level to where we had enough volume of water to complete the testing. When we placed them into service, we had our electricians go down and monitor them. We had one piece of electrical equipment that had failed. We were able to replace it, and they have been operating smoothly ever since. We're averaging about 2 hours, or a little less than 2 hours a day of pumping time. So once the river level goes down to about 18 feet, we can open the gates on the storm sewers that go out into the river and shut the pumps off, and then we'll wait till it falls further, and then we'll complete a maintenance check of them, make sure everything's good to go for the next time should they be needed.
Do 2 pumps run at the same time, or do they alternate? Or
they alternate. I mean, they do have the ability if there's enough water in the basin that it would kick a second pump on or even a third pump on. But right now we're just operating basically one pump at a time, and we switch that lead pump every week. On technology side, we're continuing to explore cloud technology as far as housing our data. It removes some of the liability as far as keeping everything safe, and also removes the equipment cost of us actually securing equipment. So Matthew's been working on that, and then we've got all of our business office data in the back of the report. And that's all I have, unless y'all have any questions.
Any questions for Matt on the operations? Okay, thank you very much, and we move right along to projects.
The water treatment plant roof project, that's something that we've been looking at and hope to have bids for you today. But when we get to that item, we'll ask that you table it as we need more time to review the one bid that was submitted. We're continuing to work on our gravity filter replacement, media replacement. Go out to bid hopefully later this summer. And then back on electrical line projects, we're hoping to finish up the tie line project between Oakwood and Southside. Due to all the other lines that would be crossing below this, we ran into some height issues. So we're exploring different options, whether it be rent some trucks to complete construction or different construction techniques to help lower that height that would be accessible by the current equipment. So we're working with the engineer to figure that out. And then on the 161 Finn connection project, the line construction's complete. They're working on finalizing all the remediation work, where they rutted up a yard or a pasture. They're working with a local contractor on that. And then on the substation, the contractor is complete, but we're having to do some relanding of some wires just because of some phasing issues with the electrical coming in compared to our current system. That's all I've got, unless y'all have any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Don't have any. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
And Paul, you're up next with the financial report, please.
Could just throw a spreadsheet up here and let you guys have at it, but I'll try to.
But you
explain it out
do
here
such a
little
good
bit.
job explaining this, so.
All right, financials for April. So compared to last month, we really didn't have much change in cash on the balance sheet. We did have a significant decline in current assets, which was mainly inventory. We did some cleaning up and continue to do some cleaning up of our inventory as we get close to our year end here. And we're still getting our new inventory manager acclimated, and so we'll continue counting here over the next few months going into June. So utility-wide total assets were about consistent with last month and down overall about 3.6% from a year ago. For the income statement, we did finally have a net income, so we were in the black for April utility-wide. Overall, our net income was about $238,000. The electric fund ended the month right at budget. Revenues were down a little bit by about $48,000. But net purchase power costs were about $17,000 less than what we had budgeted. And then both the water and sewer funds had positive months compared to budget. Compared to last year, we were once again way behind our numbers last year. Again, that's going to be primarily due to capacity in the electric fund. So on a kilowatt hour sales basis, we were down about 4.1% this year. Compared to last year and how many kilowatt hours we sold. The water fund this year did outperform last year's net income. Revenues drove that difference as they were about $80,000 more than the previous year. So year to date now, our net loss utility-wide is about $763,000. The water fund continues to perform right at or just a little bit better than budget. And the sewer fund's well exceeding its budgeted net income. The electric fund, as we've talked about, does continue to suffer from those net purchase power costs. Those are now $2.1 million over budget so far this fiscal year. And we have seen revenues take a little bit of a dip here these last few months. They're now $111,000 behind budget. So compared to last year, we are about $5 million behind last year's net income at this time. So just as a reminder, that capacity cost per month is about $283,000, and that was not budgeted for the electric fund. So if we take that out, the electric fund is continuing to do very well outside of that increased capacity. And really the decline in revenues is very much weather driven for the electric fund. So that type of fluctuation is pretty normal. We see that year to year. And then we've got our the rest of our information on there. So if we look at our debt service coverage ratios, the electric fund continues to track right along with a negative ratio there. The water fund did increase to about 1.56 for the month, which was a good sign. The sewer fund continues to remain very strong. And we've got our check register and all of the funds that were spent. I also added in our credit card statement as was requested a few months ago by someone. So pretty much everything that we've spent is on there. And that's all I've got for the financial report, unless anybody has any questions over that or power supply in general, anything at all.
I don't. Anybody have any questions? Nope. Very complete. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, on to new business. Water treatment plant roof replacement.
We'd like to table that just to give us more time to evaluate the bid that was received.
That's fine.
Do we make motions or anything?
I don't know.
I don't think we need to. I think we're okay. We will be bringing it back to you next month.
Sure, sure.
And item by item, I guess the 161 substation next.
Yes, this is change order number one for Capital Line Builders. They're the ones that constructed the substation. They've submitted a change order in an amount of $136,900. Originally, when we'd asked for bids, we'd asked for them to have $150,000 worth of allowance in that bit built in. They did not do so. Those were because we knew we were coming into material availability issues because of we were trying to get this out to bid to comply with the schedule. So we didn't have the design finalized 100%. And then we were buying some other equipment and trying to marry up what that other equipment was with what was existing. We knew we weren't going to get 100% matchup on those. And so we had wanted that in there to be able to get this constructed as quick as possible. The other was, we had to change some products because of availability. We had ordered some materials out, March of last year that never showed up by the time that the project was complete. We had to change in order to meet the time schedule and get the project finished up. And then we did find some areas where we were able to make some changes and provide a better end product. So management has reviewed this, our engineer has reviewed this, and we're all recommending the approval of it.
Is this just one gross addition, or are there net savings involved in it?
There were savings that you'll see in the change order included in your packet. There were some deductions that the contractor was able to find by changing product or doing away with this line and replacing it with another.
And none of the original bidders were asked to bid in the contingency for,
They were, but none of them had done it.
and that was acceptable at the time to everybody just because of the
Yep.
variation in supply and
Yep.
timing issues. Yeah. All right.
You initially anticipated it to be right at 150, or within 150.
150 was what we would ask to include
Right.
in there just as a placeholder. If we didn't realize that, then we could have changed ordered it out.
Almost all your contracts, you have a contingency.
Right.
It's usually that 10% that you run in there, and this is, we're saying that's within that.
Right.
We wanted them to build it into there so that we didn't hold up construction.
Right.
And so it allowed us to move forward and keep pace with what was being asked of us with our connection with Ameren.
We have gone, Matt and Jared and Paul, they've done a very good job of going back and really questioning every bit of this to make sure that we've squeezed as much of our refunds available, et cetera. So it has been very well vetted on our side, and we feel that this is a fair number.
So my question then is, had the 150,000 been approved prior, or you just said, where this is going to be eventually, we anticipate it to be about this much?
We anticipated it to be
Okay.
about that much.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the change order?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And on to surplus items.
As we're continuing to go through our inventory and materials, we're finding things that we no longer need. And so we're trying to move through the process and get them out of the warehouse as we need space. And so I bring before you 5 items that we find that we're no longer using and would like to have them declared surplus so that we can work on going through our disposal process with those.
We have a motion for that.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Where are we at next? Set board meeting date for June. Is there a holiday conflict or something?
We do, I believe our June 19th is a holiday, and Courtney, is that Juneteenth, is that what that is?
Oh, yeah.
And so it is a holiday, and so my recommendation is that we move it from June 19th to June 20th. Same time, same location, same bat channel. Only us old guys know what I'm referring to.
Thank you.
Anybody have any particular issue with June 20 instead of June 19?
And that'll be a Tuesday, won't it then?
That would be a Tuesday.
Okay.
And if not, is there another date you'd prefer?
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, the week before, we've got something.
Week before Tuesday.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, we'll make that happen. That's when we'll hold the next one.
All right, moving on. Any comments from the city attorney?
One at this time. In regards to the EPA proposal, just from my limited research just sitting here, it looks like it's an administrative order, so it's not actually from Congress itself. It'd be from the EPA themselves, and they're in the proposed rulemaking stage. So the way to have your voice heard in that is to go to the Federal Register and make a public comment in writing. They'll have a public comment section essentially on there for the next, I think, about month and a half. So that's your way to have your voice heard through
Okay.
the EPA.
Excellent,
That's
thank you.
good to know.
Excellent. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Real good. That's all you got?
That's all I got for now.
Thank
you very much.
That's some information we may want to put out, maybe on the
That
website,
is, absolutely.
so people could contact
Yep.
Ms. PR.
All right. Any general discussion? And looks like we need a motion to go into closed session.
Pursuant to section 610.02112 of the Missouri Sunshine Law, the meeting shall convene in closed session to discuss contracts.
Do I have a
Closed
sec-
session shall
sorry.
include board members, Darren, Matt, Paul, Courtney, and Andrew, should he decide that he needs to be there.
I'll make a motion.
That was a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Closed session. Turn your green light on.